Hey there, and welcome to Becoming a Bowhunter. I'm your host, Matty, and join me and our guests as we take the quality of meat back into our own hands. Searching the wild for free-ranged animals to harvest as ethically as we can. I interview a variety of specialists from the bowhunting community to help fast-track your journey as a bowhunter. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this chinwag on one of your favorite topics in the world, bow hunting. Excellent bow hunters, welcome back to another week. I'm Matthias Turner, joined this week by Lonnie Broekman. Lonnie, welcome, mate.
Yeah, good day. How you doing?
Very good, man. Thank you so much for making the time for this. I'm excited to chat to you.
Yeah, no, I sort of been following your podcast since you started, and following along. I think I've heard just about all of them now, and I've seen your message come through there the other day, just asking if I'd be interested to pop on and give some advice to some guys, and only too happy to help, mate.
Yeah, it's unreal. And like I was just saying before we started recording, I've been following you for probably like the last 6 months or so. And realistically, you're getting out a lot. Like it seems like you're getting a lot. And until now, I didn't know if it was just old content that you had or if it was the fact that you actually get out a lot. And now that we've talked, I now know that you do try to get out almost weekly if you can.
Yeah, well, I do. I do make a attempt at least to sort of get out once a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty lucky in the respect that I've got somewhere nice and close to home that's got like a decent population of deer. Well, when I say decent, I mean like a huntable population of deer.
Yeah.
And I mean sometimes some of the stuff that I put on Instagram may be a bit of old content and some new stuff in between, just photos that I sort of go through every now and then and think, I haven't put that one up yet, I'll whack that on. So so there's a bit of that and a lot of new stuff there as well. So
No, that's unreal. And so what got you into bow hunting? How long have you been doing it for?
Oh mate, I had a bow when I was 8 or 9, I think, just one of the little cheap fiberglass jobs. And then I got a compound when I was in my early teens. From memory, it was a York. It had a wooden riser. The cams on it, I can remember them now, but back then I thought it was like a Ferrari, like going from like a fiberglass bow to that. But at that stage, I was just I'd hunt some sort of local rabbits and things like that around home, but I wouldn't really say that I got into hunting with it. But I was lucky in the respect that a friend of the family's, he was into hunting with dogs, and I sort of ended up going down that road up until about maybe 8 years ago.
Yeah,
8 or 9 years ago. I'm not 100% sure. Don't hold me to it. But somewhere around that, mate, is when I really I bought another bow just through a back injury, really, and I figured I wasn't going to be able to chase the dogs around the mountains anymore. So I picked up the bow again, and I've never looked back, mate.
No, it's unreal. And so when it comes to, say, for instance, the dogs and hunting with the dogs, is it pretty much like drive around till they start barking, send them off to try find the pigs and then chase after them from there? Or is it you're all by foot when you're out and about?
Well, I do it both ways, and it depends the type of terrain that I was hunting as well. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, like if I was hunting crop country, I would probably I'd probably leave that during the day and just do like an all-nighter. Yep. I would probably have like an early dinner or something like that at camp, and then I'd saddle the dogs up and and I'd probably drive right through till morning, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was, say, hunting the mountains, you couldn't go past like an early morning walk up some gullies, or an afternoon cruise around some gullies, or that sort of thing as well, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, like a lot of the mountain properties and that, they've got sort of their winter crops on as well. They'll have oats out there, and you know that can be a good place to start looking as well, you know.
Yeah, definitely a good feed lot. In regards to like hunting with the dogs, do the dogs get messed up a fair bit? Like, do you have some pretty hefty vet bills?
Mate, I have had. I won't try to sugarcoat it. I definitely have, but in saying that as well, I've also gone to the utmost extent to keep those guys safe, because you know, they're doing the hard yards, mate. I think it's only the right thing to do is to
Look after
look after them, mate. They're your friends more than what they are working dogs. So
definitely.
Yeah, pets first and foremost, mate.
Yeah, that's unreal. It's very interesting seeing the different dynamic. Like I live in the city. City boy. I got a pet dog, and she comes into our room. Like, she sleeps in our room. She doesn't sleep on her bed, but she's got her own bed in our own room. It's so crazy to see the difference when we go out to the farm and they've got their farm dogs, and just how the different reactions are between obviously the farm dogs and then our little like princess dog. Essentially, it's pretty funny to see the different dynamics.
Mate, you would actually be very surprised as to how many so-called pet dogs I have seen when put in to that situation out in the field, whether it be a pig or if they might see a fox or whatever. That hunting gene that obviously would stem back to
innate.
like,
yeah.
You know, it comes back to a hell of a lot of them, mate. And you see it like, wow, it's gobsmacking just to see just how quickly it can come back to a dog that hasn't been trained to do that in any way, shape or form, you know.
Yeah, she actually rounds up the cattle. She'll go and get a group of cattle, and she'll just run circles in them and start directing them in the way that she wants to go. It's pretty crazy. Just where we go is all stud cattle, so it's not the ideal way to be treating them. So she gets in trouble with that.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so, I mean, something that I did want to get into before we get into, like, I mean, you've got an awesome story based around a 5-year deer hunt that you did. Meaning that you chased a deer for 5 years, which I think is absolutely incredible. And we're going to kind of really dive into that, because obviously it's a big story, but also I guess almost like relationships are built with a deer that you never actually, apart from seeing in the wild, that's the only interaction that you have. And so, we'll go through that in a sec. But first of all, I want to go through I've had some listeners reach out recently. They've been asking me about foxes. And before we dive into it, I actually want to tell, there's a story. I coach at a gym. I do a bit of, I run my own nutrition company online, but I also do some fitness coaching in gyms. And one of the chicks who comes to my gym, she was staying at her parents' place, which is here in Brisbane, just kind of they've got like an acreage block just out a little bit from the city. And they had some chickens, and one night, when the mum was away, the dad left the chickens out accidentally. And sure enough, a fox rocked up, and they went out at 1 o'clock because they heard the chickens going off. And there was they went out to see the last one get killed, unfortunately, by the fox. And what it was doing was ripping off all their heads, and they thought it was just joy killing. But later found out that foxes will go and kill a flock like that and then go and bury them so they can eat them all later, just as a survival tool, essentially. But I mean, it's pretty crazy that right here in Brisbane, like I live probably 15 minutes from the city, maybe on a bad drive, 15 minutes from the city, and I've literally got foxes in the little creek beds and stuff around me. I've seen a fair few just driving early in the morning when I'm going to the gym. So they're pretty, like, it's pretty crazy where you will find them, and they're pretty adaptive to where they need to be. But some of the questions that we've had, and I guess we'll kind of dive into them a fair bit, but like for you, it's something that you actually do hunt quite a lot. And obviously, I think maybe the farmers are definitely fond of people coming in and getting rid of species like that from their properties. But for you, like, when do you find that they're most active?
Mate, well, firstly, I absolutely love hunting foxes.
Yep.
They just the way that they come into a whistle or even spot and stalking. I just find them really, really fun. They're such a small target. They're so smart. I think they look cool. Yeah, but no, you're 100% right, mate. They're so adaptive, and there's so many of them around. Like, I actually read something a couple of weeks ago only. It was somewhere in the vicinity of $200 million. There was over that they're costing the Australian economy a year.
That's
A
insane.
year.
Just wild foxes, not wild cats as well.
Just foxes.
Holy hell!
I forget where I read it. I'm sure you'd probably find it if you searched it. But yeah, it was 200 and something million a year, and like I read it a couple of times just because I didn't believe it. It was like, I'm like, surely that can't be right. But yeah, it's pretty crazy, mate. But as you ask, sort of, when do I find them the best sort of times? Like, I prefer to go for my morning walk if I was hunting pigs or deer or whatever, and then typically I'd sort of come back to camp or whatever and have a feed or whatever, and then I'd go out to chase foxes. Like, I found for me, and I mean, there's a hell of a lot of other guys out there that have a lot more experience hunting them than me. I can only sort of speculate on what I found, but I find them to be more active sort of around that sort of 10 o'clock through to sort of just after lunch.
Okay.
And I don't know whether it's because they feed through the night and they've still got that full belly first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And you know, they're not getting hungry until that sort of later in the morning type of time. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what sort of works for me, mate. And yeah,
it seems like a crazy time.
Like I said, mate, I absolutely love hunting them, and I've been pretty lucky to have shot a few already this year, actually. So, although in saying that, it's sort of getting to that sort of time now where they're going to be that little bit harder to call, just because they're starting to pair up and mate, you know. So.
Okay. I want to get into that in a second, but I did just find the article. So, is it too late to bring the red fox under control? The red fox may have been the most destructive species ever introduced to Australia. For a start, it carries most of the blame for Australia's appalling record of recent mammal extinctions. Since European settlement, mainland Australia has lost at least 20 mammal species, far more than other countries over the same time period. Mostly, these were bandicoots, bilbies, rat, kangaroos, quolls, wallabies, along with relatively large rodents. And I just want to skip down to the little section where it does say it was over 200 million per year that it's costing, like you said. Yeah, it did specify in the snippet, but I can't actually find it right now. But yeah, that is absolutely insane. That
does it?
Yeah.
Does it say anything about their population?
It probably does, but I just can't find it while I'm trying to skim over it. It kind of jumps from year to year, so it's going through. Oh, here we go. Not in regards to population, but the combined environmental and agricultural impacts of the foxes and the effort expanded on attempts to reduce that impact probably cost Australia more than 200 million each year.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, that is insane. Wow, I had no idea. And I mean, obviously, with them being in Brisbane, and like where I go up near Gympie for my hunting property, they say that they've got them like just down the street, but I'm sure it just means that they haven't seen them on their property very much. Yeah.
Look, just about every property you go to, every farmhouse, they'll all have a resident fox that sort of, you know, lives out of their rubbish, or in your friend's case, their chickens, or, you know, the leftover dog food, or like you say, you know, that they can adapt to any sort of area. They're in the cities. They're everywhere, and I think sort of rubbing shoulders with those guys that have to be feral cats, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Like little scavengers. So you talked about just before that they're maybe starting to quieten off a little bit because they're going into their mating season. So do they kind of have like a season where they mate compared to when they're not?
So typically, well, in my area, it may differ when you get down to Victoria or up where you are. Mm-hmm. I'm not 100% sure on that, but in my area, typically sort of mid-June through to sort of August is where you'll find them paired up. So what that means is that they can get a little bit harder to call in if you're using like a whistle technique or whatever type of call you've got, just because they're sort of, they're pairing up. They've got their minds on other things, not so much their belly. But in saying that as well, I mean, there's a lot of electronic fox callers that you can get now that might have like a one I'm using at the moment is called a Fox Pro. I'm not sure of the model, but it's got like a vixen call on it.
Yeah.
So it's, I guess it's sort of, how would I explain it? It's sort of somewhere between like a bark and like a hiss.
Okay.
So you're not using like your typical bird call or a rabbit call type thing. You're just going to change that call up a little bit during that couple of month period, you know.
Yeah. And like we'll probably jump to this in a second, but in regards to the electronic callers compared to like a whistle or doing it that way, like making it yourself, have you seen a lot more success with that?
Well, I've only just started to use the electronic one, mm-hmm. And even now, like I'm still using my whistle that I made. I end up making one. I think it was like a copy of like a silver fox whistle, the same sort of tin.
Yeah. Like that V almost.
Beg your pardon?
Like the V looking.
Yeah, like the folded piece of tin on itself with like a couple of holes drilled in it.
Yeah.
More or less. So I didn't really like the sound mm-hmm. that come out of it. Don't get me wrong. Like I had success with one of them, but in my area, I just found that it wasn't really raspy enough. Mm-hmm. I hunt like a lot of creek beds and things like that where they're typically hunting birds.
Yep.
So I wanted something that sort of sounded a little bit more like a bird, a little bit more raspy. But in saying that as well, I wanted to be able to get like a high-pitched squeal out of it if need be. So I ended up making, I must have made about 10 or 12 of these things before I finally got one that had like the right sound that I was after.
Yep.
And I've had some pretty good success with that. And just of recent times, I've just been using this electronic one, and what the electronic one allows you to do is activate everything off a remote control. Mm-hmm. And so what you can do, you can set the speaker up because it's got like a little speaker that comes with it.
Yep. You
can set the speaker up, say 10 yards, say in front of you, so you've got like a nice close shot. But also what it's doing is, like if you're blowing a fox whistle from your mouth, when that fox is coming in here, he's looking at that whistle. He knows that it's elevated above the ground level. So his eyes are going to be straight up onto you, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas if the sound is coming from the ground, his head's down, it's going to allow you to draw your bow. I think you can get away with a little bit more.
Yeah. If
that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That was a big aha moment for me just then. Literally, I was like, oh, no way. Like, it makes complete sense. But
a lot of guys will use like a little mouse squeak, and they'll put that under their foot, and they'll whistle with their mouth using their fox whistle. Mm-hmm. And once they've spotted one or whatever, they'll just coax it in just using their foot so that fox keeps its head down. Like I said, it allows the hunter to draw their bow and sort of get away undetected, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, wow, that's really cool. And so, I mean, are you only whistling when you've found them, like when you've scoped them out on the land, or are you just whistling to try get them to come in?
Yeah, just trying to get them come in, mate. If you see an area that you think might hold a fox, like if you see like a little rocky outcrop or somewhere where you think might house one, or a nice blackberry bush, or a nice little gully with some deadfall in it, or those sorts of places. Set yourself up, find yourself a good little stand, somewhere sort of in the shade, preferably, with say a tree behind you, or a nice sort of scrubby bush or something like that behind you to break up your outline, and just give it. I usually give it a really good blast straight up for about a minute. For about a minute, I'll just go hard, and then as I sort of finish, I'll just slowly dial that tone back, so it's not quite as loud. So, like, if you can imagine when, just say, for instance, like if a fox was to grab a bird and scare it straight up, you can imagine that bird would be just terrified straight up. But then as the fox sort of got over the top of the bird, that would just slowly die down as the fox killed it.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to mimic that type of thing the best you can,
Yeah, wow. No, that's really cool. And so would you, you talked about switching to like a foot squeaker before, but in regards to the calls, and I've got a few different fox whistles, and one of them is like that apex, that the steel like V-shaped one, the folded over metal, and it blasts, like it is super loud. Would you swap between different whistles throughout that time? So, for instance, go hard at it for a minute, jump to a different whistle, and then start using that for more of like a killed off sound?
So what I do, I've got that whistle that I use, like the raspy sort of sound.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'll have a big blast at that for about a minute.
Yep.
And then I'll put the whistle down underneath my shirt, so it can't get tangled up in your bowstring or whatever.
Yeah.
And trust me, it's happened to me before. I thought it was going to pull me head off.
Oh, fuck.
That's what I said. And so I'll tuck it back behind my shirt, and I'll just slowly scan the whole area just to make sure I can't see anything. And then what I do, I curl my index finger around.
Yep.
If you could imagine, like you're making like the OK sign, but curl my index finger around, and I'll suck on the crease of that.
Yep.
And it creates like a really good sort of bird type noise as well.
Could you give us a quick demo?
I could, yep. So it sort of sounds something like this.
Yeah, wow.
That sort of sound. So, and I'll do that for a couple of minutes. And once again, I'll just sit back and just sort of scan really, really slowly, trying not to make any movement whatsoever. Yep. Mind you, this whole time you've got an arrow on the string, your release aids on, you're ready to rock and roll, And and I'll do that for a couple of minutes, like I said, and if nothing sort of comes up, I might repeat that process another one or two times, and then I'll move to the next stand.
Yeah, okay. And then how far are you talking when you're saying move to the next stand? Like, are you going a couple 100 meters, or like a few meters, or a couple K sort of thing?
Well, I'm typically hunting creek beds and around dams. So if it was around a dam, I would probably move to the next dam unless there's a nice patch of deadfall timber or somewhere sort of in between the dams that I think I might be lucky enough to pull one out of. But when I'm hunting a creek system, it'll probably be like every 200 metres, just because there's a lot of like reedy type grass in the bottom of my creek beds that I hunt.
Yep.
There's a lot of little tunnels in there, and there's quite a good population of foxes in this particular creek that I'm normally hunting.
So in normal like waterway like flow, for instance, in the farm, like they might have a tunnel that they've built themselves, for instance. Is that somewhere where you'd find them at all, or is it more so like natural habitat spaces where they can hide in like small holes instead?
So are you talking in the sense of like a road culvert or something like that?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Anywhere where they can get like a bit of cover out of the elements. Your chook pen. You would really be surprised as to where you'd find them like that. It doesn't take much cover to hide a fox, and if in doubt, mate, just blast the whistle and just see. They'll soon come out. I like I said, I have good success on the creek systems and blackberry type scrub.
It definitely makes me think that I'm not putting in enough effort for them. Like, not that I've ever really put in much effort for them anyway, but with the whistling or anything, I've gone out a few times and just been like, oh, I'll blast it and see what happens. But when you're talking about that, like your different creek beds and stuff, I've definitely got them at the property that I go to. So it's like I feel like I just haven't put in the time or effort to actually call them out properly.
Once you work out a strategy and you've got like a fox or two to come in, it'll be just like the penny will drop and you'll be like, oh yeah, I get it. And all of a sudden you'll be looking at the lay of the land in totally fresh eyes. You'll be like, I reckon there'll be a fox there. I reckon there'll be a fox there. And, all of a sudden you'll be looking at the hillside in a totally different manner. I'm not saying you personally, but for me, like in the early years, like I would look at the side of the mountain through my binos. I couldn't see any pigs, or I couldn't see any deer or whatever, and I'd sort of start to hang my head, in the sense that there's nothing here. But now I look at that hillside in a totally different light. I might not see a big boar or that big buck that everyone wants to kill, but I just see, I reckon there'll be a fox there. I think there'll be a fox there. And, before I know it, I'm on my way to that stand. I'll have a whistle there. I'll have a whistle on the next one and onwards. Like it just it makes the hunt so much more enjoyable when you can fill those little gaps in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. So you're not necessarily actually looking for the animal. You're more so looking for their favourite type of habitat.
Yeah, that's right. And just making the most out of a hunt too. Like you've got to be willing to adapt yourself to the hunt. Like you might be on a block that might not have a whole lot of game, so you hunt the game that it does have. Like there's no point going out wanting to kill a pig if you're on a fox block, or there's no point going out wanting to kill a pig if you're on a deer block. You know what I mean? Like you need to adjust and adapt to the type of property that you're hunting and the type of animals that it's got,
Yeah, and so the difference when you've got, say, a second person with you and they're whistling instead, would you put them in front of you, to the side of you, behind you? Like, where are you aiming for them to be when they're whistling?
So what I would normally do, if I had a guy come with me, I would, if they were going to shoot, I would have them in front of me, say sort of 10, 15 yards, something like that.
Yep.
And I would say to them, and this is all sort of depending on the type of country you're into. Like if it's thick and you're 15 yards away from the other hunter, like you might not be able to see what they can see.
Yeah.
So you might need to shorten that distance up, But for me, where I hunt, I would normally sit about 10 to 15 yards away, because pretty well everywhere where I hunt foxes, I could see what they could see and vice versa. So
yeah.
And then I would say to them, okay, so if a fox comes in, I will tell you to draw, and I will also be the person that stops the fox for you. So all you need to do is just concentrate on hitting the fox, basically. So, well, it just makes it easier. It just takes something out of the guesswork for the person on the bow.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, like I said, but if you're in tight country and it's probably just as easy for the guy with the bow just to stop the fox when he or she thinks so, and just let them do it, because it's you may not be able to see something that they can, and vice versa. So
how are you stopping the fox?
Typically, I just make a little growl noise. Like once they sort of get 10, 15 yards, or if sometimes they just come running flat out. I've had them come right up to my boot and almost take a snap at my boot. And I actually know people that have been bitten on the foot by a fox coming in.
Far out.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes you might have to growl at them like 2 or 3 times to get them to stop. And I'll just as they sort of get a bit closer, I'll just sort of go, and they sort of stop, and they prop, and so 9 times out of 10, the rest is history. And yeah.
And you'll do the same whether you're solo or whether you've got someone there. You'll give them that little grunt or growl just to stop them up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like if they get really, really wary, if you've hunted the same area for a consecutive number of days, after like the second day, they're really, really wary of a whistle. Mm-hmm. They might come into sort of 30 yards, and they'll just sit there and they won't come any further, but they'll just lock eyes with you basically. And no matter what type of call you make, they just won't move. Other times you might see them take off in the opposite direction. So they really are clever, which for me makes them an awesome animal to hunt with a bow.
Yeah, definitely. That's really cool. I actually checked up the population. And there's 7.2 million in Australia is what they're estimating. Whereas wild cats, you're looking at 18 million.
18 million?
Yeah, 18 million with, let me just double check on that. I think the wild cat population is 18 and the pet cat population is around 2 to 3 million. Wild cats in Australia, let's just double check on this.
You could nearly guarantee that half of those pet cats, you could nearly almost guarantee that at least 50% of those pet cats are also endangering our natives as well. So, like you'd be looking in excess of sort of 20 million feral cats out there causing harm to our natives.
Yeah,
that's disgusting.
All right. There you go. I've just got a completely different number. So I don't know when I got it was 18 million I saw at the start of the year, but I'm going to say that I was incorrect based on Wikipedia. And it says that it's now at 7.3 million. So 2.7 million domestic cats and between 2.1 and 7.3 million feral cats. So that's quite a big, that's a big difference to say it's at this or this. You're talking about 5 million different, but I mean that's pretty crazy. So I mean, pretty much in par with the wild foxes then.
Well, even if what was the fox population? 7.2 million, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, so even if you say that feral cats are at the same, say they're 7.2 million as well, foxes are costing the Australian economy over $200 million a year.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that feral cats are costing the same? Because, I mean, they hunt the same animals. They virtually have the same hunting characteristics.
I would think cats would be probably worse, right?
that's exactly what I was just about to say. I would nearly say that cats would be worse.
As they can climb the trees, which foxes can't get up.
100%.
How about the wild cats? Like, are you doing? Have you done much for them? Like, do they come in on calls or anything?
Every now and then I'll get a cat come in. I actually had one last time I was away on that particular property. It turned out it was the farmer's cat. Luckily, a shot didn't present itself. I wouldn't have been very popular. But, it's not something that I see a whole lot of on this particular place. I have seen them there. I have shot one there before. And I think maybe only one or two others, to be honest. But, it's not heavily populated with cats where I am, so...
Yeah, and so for you, like, what is your bread and butter outside of the foxes? What are you mainly chasing?
Okay, so my bread and butter species would be pigs.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, on any given weekend, I can go to any of my blocks and one in particular and see. Where's a number? Over 200 pigs easily.
Jesus.
And sometimes on good seasons, not so much now. They've been in really bad drought for the last 2 years on this particular place I'm talking about. But I've had times there when I've just driven past 200 driving into the place.
Wow, that's insane. So some of your photos and some of the most recent ones that you've put up of pigs, there's one big boar that you've got a photo of, but it's under lights. Was that like a shot that was taken in the afternoon, then just recovered after light?
Yeah. So that was. Is it a photo where there's two?
No, the other one next to it where you're laying down behind it with your hand on it. A big sucker. Right next to the fence line.
I think that would have been. Well, it would have just definitely been shot in the afternoon. But yeah, last light. Yeah. I actually. A lot of people prefer to hunt first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, like I really like a walk in the morning as well, and I'll never miss one. But for me, I find that I'm more productive late in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I put that down to, and this is once again only my experience. People will probably want to tar and feather me over it, but in my experiences, I just find that for pigs mainly, that in the afternoon they're coming out for a purpose. They're coming out to feed. I think their guard's down a little bit, and when you see them in the afternoon, they are out doing what they want to do, whereas in the morning they're usually heading back to somewhere. They're usually, because they've already fed.
Mm-hmm. No, I've found the exact same thing. Like, definitely, if I want to go after the pigs, I'll go in the afternoon and go looking for them. I've actually had more success with deer in the morning over the afternoon, though.
Yeah, okay. Don't get me wrong. Like, during the winter months, like, there's nothing better than hunting big mountain boars in the fog or whatever. It's just awesome with the sun coming up. The big mountain boars tend to sort of stay out a little bit longer, and I find that that's typically because they're staying in bed longer. Like, they won't usually feed through the night just because it's so cold.
Yeah,
they're no different to us. They feel the cold, and usually they'll come out to feed a little bit later, which in turn obviously keeps them in the paddock a bit longer because they've got a certain amount of feed that they need to get into themselves as well.
Mm-hmm. Especially those big guys, like, they'd be munching so much food.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know how much they eat a day. I know one of the farmers where I hunt most of my pigs, and he's got a feedlot there, and they're costing him a shitload of money every week. Just, I mean, if his cattle don't get in there and get their feed by about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, there could be anywhere between 100 to 200 pigs in the feedlot, and the cattle are just pushed to the side.
That's insane. Yeah, I've seen the pigs push cattle off to the side. Just they'll be eating the grain, and the pigs just literally run across the paddock and just come straight in, stick their heads in. The cows just push off to the side. I'm talking like big bulls too, and they'll just shuffle off because these pigs are so I guess needy. They just jump in there. They're just little scavengers.
They're just pigs.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I mean, even the food that they're not eating, they just make a mess of it. They'll, it almost turns it into unedible to the cattle.
Yeah.
They'll flick dirt through it, and if it's moist where the feedlot is, they can get mud through it, and you know what I mean. It's just, and then cattle just won't go near it anyway. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, proper pain in the arse, the old pig.
And so, I mean, you've got a few photos of goats as well. Is that something that you chase regular, or is that just kind of when they're about?
Yeah, one of the properties I've got there in the mountains, it's got a good population of goats on it. I like to hunt goats. Don't get me wrong, but it's not something that I hold too high. Like I'd much prefer to hunt like a deer or a fox or a boar or whatever. But I think as hunters, and if you're good enough to be allowed access through a property owner, I think it's your obligation to sort of take out a few animals that you may not be such a good trophy or whatever. If you get what I mean, like
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you don't want to you don't want them ringing the next guy or the next person that comes knocking on the door or whatever. Instead of them saying, "No, I've got another hunter on here," he might just turn around and say, "Well, yeah, I've got another hunter on here, but he don't do much." So.
I'm just like,
and besides that, like every now and then, I'll take a little bit of meat off a goat or whatever, and they're actually delicious. So.
Yeah, and so how much of your animals, and obviously things like some of the pigs and some of the foxes you're not going to be eating, but how much of the meat are you actually collecting to eat?
I would say a lot of people will probably want to tar and feather me for this as well, but I would say less than 50%, mate.
Purely because you're not going through it?
Beg your pardon?
Purely because you're not getting through it?
Well, I just... depending on what the animal is, like where I hunt my pigs, like a lot of the pigs are in the feedlot, so they're actually quite delicious. But just given the number of them there, like sometimes it's just whack them and stack them, and you just well, for me personally, I just don't take the time to take the meat from them. It's sort of move on to the next one, and basically sort of not only doing the farmer a hand, but for me personally, mate, I'm a hunter first and foremost, and collecting meat's a secondary for me. But if I shoot a deer or whatever, like I can nearly guarantee I'll be taking something from that, unless it's really ruddy and disgusting. And even then, I'll probably still take something. But like I said, a lot of people will probably want to skin me alive for saying that, but because there seems to be definitely a movement towards what the Americans are doing. Like they've got to take meat, but here in Australia, I mean, we're a totally different culture, and I think a lot of our hunting has sort of come from, helping farmers to eradicate feral animals. Back in the early 1800s, when a lot of these animals were introduced to Australia, it would have just been a rich man's game. It wasn't until those animals sort of, got out of control and that us sort of regular general public sort of would have really started to hunt them, So I think sort of culturally, I would say more than 50% of hunters are hunters because they like the act of hunting more so than to hunt for meat.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like, realistically, with your background coming from the dog hunting side of things, it's a different type compared to what I guess the modern day bow hunter is. But at the same time, as hunters in Australia, we're not doing the best job based on the fact that we're having, like, the government is culling thousands of animals each year. And I mean, whether that means that we're actually, like, maybe I should retract that statement. Maybe it doesn't mean that we're not doing a good enough statement. Maybe it means that there's just not enough of us and that we don't have the access to be able to do it. But, I mean, realistically, there's still a system in place where they have to go above and beyond the hunting system.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. Like, I think there's a lot of people, they sort of frown upon shooting an immature, whether it be a stag or a buck or whatever, like shooting an immature anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, you might hear that phrase, let them go and let them grow. Well, let them go and let the government shoot them is something else that you can do as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But in saying that as well, like you say, with our access, we don't have a whole lot of access to public grounds, and as everyone knows, they're just breeding grounds for feral animals. And I mean, I know you guys up there, you just have bugger all public access, but I mean, it's not so bad in Victoria, and there are pockets here in New South Wales where we do have access, but you've still got all your national parks and stuff here in New South Wales that, are out of bounds, and you're lucky to even bloody step foot in there, let alone hunt them. But that makes it difficult as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think, like I said before, if you've got access to private property, I think it is our obligation to sort of take a few animals out, regarding whether you're taking the meat or whether you're just hunting for the hunt or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, the farm that I go to, they're happy to have me there because they know that I'm seeing what's happening out on the property when they don't have eyes on there. I'm seeing the animals that are potentially getting around, as well as even if it's just like the scat that the animals are leaving. So it's like, hey, have you seen anything? Have you seen any big dogs getting around? Because there's definitely some big dog poos out there, and that gives them something to then look for as well. And I think it kind of just gives them a bit of an overwatch on what's out there. So, like, realistically, it does definitely kind of work both ways. Like, it's very beneficial for us as hunters to get out, but for them, it's obviously a benefit to have someone like that almost, I guess, looking after the land as well on top of what they're doing.
I mean, there are ways that we can still help the farmers out and sort of, get a few animals on the ground and still manage your herd, whether it be boars or deer or whatever. Like, if you've got a big population of pigs or whatever, like, you just go out and shoot a ton of sows, and leave the younger boars to grow up,
Yeah.
Or if you got a heap of deer on your place, shoot some does. They're beautiful to eat. And you can there's other ways that you can manage your trophy herd and still help the farmer by taking a few animals as well.
Yeah,
it's just
definitely.
it's just being mindful of that, and
I was going to say, I think realistically they're just happy to see numbers on the ground.
100%, mate.
Yeah. So, I mean, do want to dive into your 5-year deer hunt, really. I mean, we built it up a fair bit at the start, and we've almost got an hour deep, which is awesome because it's actually been very, very insightful. But take us through from start to finish. Give us a bit of a rundown on this deer.
Well, mate, it was. I thought for a long time there this thing was going to be the death of me, to be honest. So, as it is, that particular deer was the very first deer that I actually drew a bow on.
So cool.
And so I was out on this particular place early one morning. It was during the rut.
Yeah.
And it was 5 years ago. and I'd been sitting against this fence in the dark, waiting for it to get light because I knew that just on the other side of the fence is where they would frequent. So I waited and waited, and anyway, it got a little bit lighter. So I put the pack on, and there's a strand or two missing out of the fence about 20 metres from where I was sitting.
Yeah.
So I've got up and I've sort of headed to that section where I was going to go under the fence. And I sort of got to that section and I looked out across the flat, and there was that deer. He was smashing up a little eucalypt tree, and he was probably about 50 yards away. And I'm like, holy shit, like he's probably been there doing that the whole time I've been there. And I'd probably been sitting there for about 2 hours,
Far out.
So I was like, oh wow. So I had a set of rattlers on the backpack. So I've knelt down, I put an arrow on the string, got the antlers off the pack, and given him a rattle. Well, this thing has just stopped what it was doing and just piss bolted straight towards me. I'm like, holy fuck, it's actually worked. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah,
Sorry.
go for it. I've already dropped a few.
Yeah, sorry, but anyway, and this buck ran right up to like 5 metres from me. I hadn't got through the fence at this stage, so I was kneeling down, and this buck was literally 5 metres from me on the other side of the fence, just staring down at me because I was kneeling. And like I've just drawn back, and I've got no idea what I done. No idea what I was doing, and at that stage, like I said, I hadn't hunted deer at all at that stage. A couple of times, but I most certainly hadn't had an opportunity to draw on one. And I don't even know if I looked through my peep sight or anything, mate. I just touched off on the release, and just watched the arrow just sail straight over the top of it.
Oh no! So he didn't see you when you drew back.
Beg your pardon?
He didn't see you when you drew back.
Mate, I don't think he cared.
Yeah, okay. He was just ready to fight.
He was pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was pissed. And I can still to this day see the look on that deer's face as it come running up to the fence and propped, and it was just staring at me like, get out of my paddock now.
That's unreal.
Yeah, it was, mate. And so, from then on, I was just like, yep, I want that deer. I want that deer. And the following year, I had him at 20 yards. He was shoulder to shoulder with a big chocolate buck. And I had him at 20 yards, and they were walking, like I said, shoulder to shoulder, and they were head on, and I just couldn't get an ethical shot in the thick timber that I was in.
Yeah.
And they ended up cutting my scent and blowing out of there. And I think the following year was...
How long was that rut? Like, in that rut, how long had you been chasing him for already?
In the first year?
Oh, yeah, first and then second year, both of them.
Well, the first year I'd seen him a couple of times, like in the distance, and never had an opportunity until that morning on the fence.
Yep.
And then I had gone out and I'd bought a heap of trail cameras and basically just started to pattern him from like that very first day, And so I'd had a heap of photos of him. And like the following rut, I missed him at 20 yards. Missed him as in the sense that he just got my wind and blew out of there.
Yeah.
I might have had one or two other opportunities that year. The third year was much the same. Heap of photos. The third year, I missed the peak of the rut. I actually went up your way and got my first red stag.
Okay.
And then I came back to that area, and I think I missed him again.
And so when you're saying you're getting photos of him, is it photos just during the rut, or is this kind of all year round that you're getting photos of him?
All year round, mate. Like I go out there to that particular place typically every Friday, and I'll check my cameras, see where he is. By the third year, I knew where he grew out. I knew where he'd drop his antlers. Basically, by the third and fourth year, I knew when he was going to fart. And then I think the fourth year, I missed the peak of the rut out there again. I went back up your way and got one or two red stags and a fallow buck up there in the Brisbane Valley, and a doe, I think. And probably from memory, I think I missed him again on the fourth year. Wow. Just where he would rut was just in the worst spot. It was right on this open paddock. He always had all the does, which was like he would have anywhere between 20 and 30 does every year. Was really hard to get in there. And so last year I said after the rut, I'm going to concentrate the peak of the rut on this white buck, even if I have to put a tree stand in and kill him in a tree stand. I didn't really want to, and that's no disrespect to people that hunt in tree stands. I think it's something very difficult to do. Like having not done it, but knowing me, like I can't sit still for 5 minutes, let alone sit in a tree stand all bloody day. Yeah. So I didn't really want to do it that way, but it certainly seemed like it was going to be the only method that I was really going to get within his ballpark to get a crack at him, you know.
Yeah. Wow.
And anyway, I had a heap of photos of him this year, and he actually turned up a little bit late. And I was starting to get worried that he didn't make it through the winter, or he'd been knocked by a car, or some other hunter sort of snuck in there and shot him. But anyway, he ended up turning up on my cameras, thank God. And I just started to pattern him, and it was funny. So by this stage, he started to go back. He'd started to go back 2 years ago, and when I say go back, his antlers are getting smaller, and he's he's getting on in age, which I couldn't give a rat's ass about. You know, I was happy to shoot him as a stickhead. Like that's just the deer that I wanted to kill.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was funny this year because a big chocolate buck turned up out there, which I'd never seen before on any of my cameras over the years, and he had all the does this year. So I thought, so we'll see what happens. So anyway, the wind on this particular day was perfect.
What do you call perfect? Was it like not really blowing, or blowing straight in your face, like consistent? What's perfect for you?
So on this particular place, it's usually blowing out of the northeast or the north, or coming out of the northwest, and any of those three directions is shit house to try and get into where I need to be.
Yeah.
And this particular day, it was coming out of the southeast, and it was a good decent breeze. It wasn't blowing a gale or anything, but it was a consistent breeze. So I snuck in through the trees, and I had the open flat in front of me where he typically ruts. And I couldn't see anything, and I sort of glassed, and there was nothing out there. And I nearly wasn't going to go and check my camera because I'd only been there 2 days before. I didn't really want to go and scent up that area too much. And I thought, no, I'm going to go down and check the camera because we've had some recent rain that actually had rain that morning, and I couldn't see any fresh tracks on their scrape. So typically after after rain, like a buck will go back around and re-scent up his scrapes.
Okay.
So
Just
I
to
was
show
like,
those
well,
years.
yeah, that's right. So I seen that none of the scrapes had any fresh footprints after the rain. So I'm like, no, I'm going to go and check this camera. So I went down and checked it, and he hadn't been there since the night before or early in the morning or whatever time it was. It was dark on the photos of him. And, yeah, so I thought, well, I'm going to set up here and have a bit of a rattle. So I'll set up, arrow on the string, blah, blah, blah. Give a rattle up, and within seconds he emerged from the timber across from me and started walking out across the open straight towards me. And at that point I knew that it was game on. I had cover in front of me. The wind I was pretty confident was going to hold out. And he come right up to about 8 yards.
Wow.
I put a good shot in, and I think I would have. It was quartering on. I would have definitely taken out one lung, liver, and probably gone through the length of his gut, and the arrow exited just in front of his opposite back leg.
Yeah.
And he went out to the paddock and he started to do the 360s, and I was just praying for him to go down. And the crazy thing was it was like a minute he was doing that, and he was getting wobbly legged, and then that big chocolate buck that I was saying had the does this year.
Yeah.
He come out of the timber as well and started circling around the white buck as if he was going to fight him.
Far out.
And that was at about 55 yards, 60 yards. I wasn't really confident to put a follow-up shot on the white buck, and nor did I think he needed it either. Like it was just like waiting for him to go down, you know. But
Yeah.
what was probably only like a matter of 2 minutes seemed like 2 hours.
Not bad.
And then it was almost like the chocolate buck scooped him up and they retreated back to the timber. And I'm like, this can't be happening. I'm like, this can't be how this fairy tale ends. Like I've been out here every single week for the last 5 years in rain, hail or shine. Like, this isn't how it's meant to end. And, mate, wild animals, they don't give a rat's ass what you've got planned, eh?
No, definitely.
They do not give a shit.
So
And,
when he scooped him up, what do you mean? Like he's come and got him, like kind of picked him back up with his antlers?
No, like just picked him up in morale, you know,
Yeah,
like
okay,
just
gotcha.
like in spirit or something, so to speak. And the pair of them just walked off together. It was almost like the chocolate buck was helping him across the paddock.
Far out.
And so I put the binos up and I could see him just inside the timber line, but I knew as soon as I stepped out of the timber that I was in and crossed the open that, they'd pick me up and I just didn't want to bump him, you know.
Yeah.
So I waited about an hour, walked into the timber, found some blood, but couldn't see the buck. And it was at that stage there I rung a mate with a lot of experience, and I just sort of I said, you know, what would you do? And he just said, you've definitely killed him. He said, just back out, come back in the morning, and, you should find him pretty quick, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
That's what I'd done, mate. Got absolutely no sleep whatsoever. I was just worried.
Oh, right.
Worried sick all night. Had to go to work the next morning. Luckily, I've got a good boss. He just sort of said, make up the hours the following day. And, so we knocked a few jobs out of the road that sort of had to be done. And he said, go and see if you can find him. And, I went out there with another mate and walked about 100 metres from where we last found him, or last sort of seen him, and found him. He was he'd come to rest on a pad, and yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. Having a look at the shot, like I mean, if people jump onto your Instagram, they can find this this deer in particular, And having a look at your shot, like you said, he was quartering on.
Yep.
Is that correct? So he's obviously, you've put it through just behind his shoulder blade there, and it's popped through and popped out the other side of his, or just before his leg, you're saying. So pretty much your shot is on almost the angle that the photo has been taken of you with your hand on him.
Pretty well, mate. Yeah, from memory.
Okay. Yeah. And like when I look at that, like when you're thinking anatomy of the deer, like it's actually kind of almost a little high, I would think. Is that like that? And you said that was perfect shot to go through one lung and definitely get through the liver as well.
Yeah, well, I think when you take into account when they're at about 8 yards and I'm 6 foot, so I was shooting down
on him. Yeah.
Yeah, so it might have been, I can't really recall. It might have been an inch or two high, but most certainly picked up that lung and.
It's definitely done the job, right? Like it's obviously good, and I think that, like, just for me, coming from the side where I haven't shot a deer at all, it's just interesting to kind of see how big that window actually is that you've got, and obviously the angles do really matter. Like you said, you were shooting down on him, so it does make a fair difference. But yeah, that's quite interesting.
Another thing too, like when their lungs are fully inflated. Mm-hmm. Obviously makes that target area significantly bigger than when they're totally deflated. Mm-hmm. When they're totally deflated, there's actually quite a big. I think a lot of people refer to it as sort of no man's land in between the spine and the top of the lungs, where you can be broadside and go straight through that area. And I've done it on pigs, on more than one occasion, and they'll carry on like it's like nothing's even happened, you know.
Yeah, and far out.
Yeah, it just misses those lungs completely and just goes underneath the spine, and just gives them a scar to tell the story.
Yeah, definitely. So it's pretty crazy that he's sticking around the same place year in, year out. Like he's not really maneuvering too far. Like I think it's pretty typical of the Reds to kind of shift on, and then they move space when it comes to rut season compared to when it's not. They'll move back to where they kind of originated from. Is that something that the fellows do?
Yeah, so typically this herd, and quite a few others, from what I'm led to believe and experienced, they'll typically, from what I understand as well, they'll rut where they were born.
Okay.
I've heard that off a few people.
Yeah.
And they'll come back to the same location every year. And then once they've finished rutting, they'll obviously look for green feed. They'll feed up, bachelor up, and then they'll go to the areas where they grow out. And then, coming around to that sort of January, coming into hard antler, by the end of sort of February, they're sort of starting to sort of split up and starting to cover that ground to see who's who and see who's around, and then they'll just slowly migrate their way back to where they rut.
It seems quite ancestral, right? Like to go back to where you were born rather than trying to find a new space.
Yeah, 100%. Like I don't know whether it's just somewhere because they know that that's where the does are, or whether the does are there because it's a safe place, or like I'm very new to it, so I'm constantly learning as well, and guys like Toby Hines and guys of that nature, like they're quite onto it when it comes to fallow, at the very least. When those guys are talking, I'm listening. So
yeah, definitely.
And from what I understand, even even the best are still bloody, or the most experienced, I should say, are learning all the time about deer as well. They're just a bizarre creature. Like they really are. They just blow me away.
Yeah, I think unless you're kind of tracking them full time, like it's pretty tough. Like at the moment, the property that I go to, I haven't had a chance to go in ages. It's absolutely killing me because the farmer's been messaging me saying, "Hey, they're out every day. Like we're seeing them sometimes 3-4 times a day, and they're just chilling. Like we'll drive past them 3 or 4 times a day, and they do not move. They're just happy to be in the sun, or they're happy just to keep feeding up on the paddock they're on. And it's just like, oh damn it! Like it's probably it seems that everyone rages about the rut, but it almost seems like right now, like June's a better month to go because they're about so much.
Mate, a lot of people like to hunt them post rut, just for the simple fact that they're beat up, they're tired. You might typically find them out laying in the sun, just basically licking their wounds. Like they can be a bit easier to get killed post rut as opposed to pre rut when they're probably less patternable. In my experience, anyway, and the areas that I hunt, like I know exactly where my bucks go as soon as the rut's done. I could pretty well walk in there blindfolded and find them. Whether I get an opportunity to get an arrow on the string or not's a totally different thing, though.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the part that goes unseen, right? Like the amount of time we're actually out in the bush compared to the amount of time that's actually successful. Like for someone like you who's getting out every week, how often are you getting an arrow on a string?
Probably once a fortnight.
Yeah.
So usually when I do like a local hunt, I will always see deer.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 80% of the deer I'm not sort of wanting to hunt.
Yeah.
Just trying to let them numbers get a little bit bigger and trying to get that genetic where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Just trying to help them out a bit. But, I mean, if I'm hunting any of my mountain blocks, pretty well guarantee that I'll kill something each time I'm out there, whether it be a few pigs or a few goats or the foxes like we spoke about. So I could guarantee I'd at least where worst case scenario I'd definitely get the arrow on the string a few times and on a hunt like that, just because there's obviously a lot of animals. It's just game rich, you know what I mean? You get a lot of opportunity, and even if you blow a stalk or whatever, the opportunity is just going to be around the corner for another crack. So,
how often? And this is something I've never really asked or dived into at all. But how often are you recovering the arrow and able to use it again after you've used it on animals?
Mate, I am hopeless at finding arrows.
Oh, that makes me feel better.
Mate, I am hopeless at finding arrows. I would say less than 50% of the time. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, like sometimes I just don't even bother looking.
Yeah.
That's a cranky dog you got there.
Yeah. There's a few neighbourhood dogs that she likes to go after. She thinks she's protecting us.
They might be foxes.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, but I'm pretty lucky in the sense. I work with Cayuga, those guys over there with their broadheads. So I'm lucky in that sense that I'm not forking out exorbitant amounts of money on broadheads.
It was funny because you said before, like back in the 1800s, it used to be a rich man's sport. I still kind of feel like it is. Like the amount that I spend on bow hunting is ridiculous. It's almost like scary to think every time that the new set of arrows are coming around, and every time now that I make a mistake, like a stuff up, and I either shoot an arrow into an arrow or I shoot an arrow just off and miss the target and I hit some cement or something, like it hurts me now. I'm like, oh no, not again.
Mate, I know exactly. And look, it still kills me now. Like it, and besides that, like I make all my own arrows.
It's a lot of time and effort put into it.
A lot of time and effort, and I make sure that everyone's exactly the same. And
yeah,
you know, there's nothing better than when you're looking at a fresh dozen arrows and just sort of thinking, you know, what awaits for those dozen arrows, and then, you know, sure enough, you're bloody 2 inches low or 2 inches high over the back or underneath, and you're in the tussock grass or the long grass, and you think, oh well, that's not what I really had in mind for that arrow. But
it's funny the amount of times that I look for about 10 minutes and I'm like, oh, fuck it, my time's not worth that. Like I'd rather put it in somewhere else. So I'll leave that one be. It can be the earth now.
I'm the same, mate. I used to spend an hour or more looking for an arrow, whereas now I just look at that hour as something that I could be an hour deep on a stalk of it on another critter, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You wait till you start parting out hand over fist with your hard earned, mate, for backcountry hunting equipment as well. It doesn't stop, mate. It doesn't stop.
It's funny, like I've talked about it a few times on the podcast about, like, for me, it doesn't really interest me as such yet. Like, obviously, it is very interesting. I'd love to do it, but more so the money side of things. When I see that and the output of it, I'm like, yeah, no, it's not for me right now in this stage of life, but maybe down track, who knows?
Mate, everything is $1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Backpack, $1,000.
Yeah.
Tent, $1,000. Good pair of boots, there's $600. Like it's just like everything's like $600. May as well be $1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
You're never going to see that change.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
all part of it. Well, Lonnie, dude, thanks so much for joining. I think if we could just maybe part on, and I mean, you've already given a heap, in particular around the foxes, like that kind of blew my mind, that talk. I think that was really good, and I think the listeners are going to be really, really blown away by that based on you've answered every question that they had, which is really cool. So what, in saying that, is there any more insights that you want to give to like a new bow hunter or bow hunters in general, really?
Mate, I guess parting thoughts would be just get out there and have fun. Don't take it so serious, you know. Like don't get caught up in all the bullshit on social media, and you know, don't let some of those arseholes out there, you know, dictate to you how you should feel about killing a specific animal, whether it be an immature buck or a nanny or a sow or whatever. You know, if you're happy to do that, be happy to do it. Like, I just see there's enough stress in day-to-day life as it is, let alone, you know, venturing out into the wilderness and to be overcome by more stress and anxiety, whether it be just, you know, you're not getting into the animals or whatever. Just have fun, enjoy it. Take your time and learn as you go. There's no rush. Enjoy yourself and less stress.
Yeah, man, I love that. I think I've definitely fallen victim to putting like someone who puts stress on themselves for you have to get out and you have to get something, and realistically the time that you take that off, it makes the weekend so much more enjoyable. And when you start to take in those small things and you really start to notice like the wilderness around you, it makes such a difference. And you can go out on a weekend and stress yourself the hell out and come home and not feel any better. Whereas when you go out and you just kind of take the pressure off, I definitely feel that it can be such a meditative practice, and the fact that you come back and you feel refreshed. Like it can be tiring stuff walking out in the bush all day or hopping up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go out and meet first light, and you're not going to bed until late because whatever happens. But like realistically, you can completely wear your body out physically and mentally, yet you come home and you feel so refreshed because you've taken that time.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, mate, I would just say to anyone out there that's getting into bow hunting or have thoughts of getting into bow hunting is just, yeah, have fun and just enjoy it for what it is, and just don't put too much stress on yourself. You might see, someone's post on Instagram or people that are constantly putting articles in magazines or whatever and feel like that you're a lesser hunter because you're not contributing to, media or whatever, And look, I can guarantee, many years from now when you're laying on your deathbed, you're not going to give a rat's ass about how many fucking likes you got for a stupid photo that you've posted on Instagram, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going to be looking back on those hunts and yeah.
Nah, dude, that's awesome. So, I mean, people can follow you along on Instagram. It's at Lonnie, which is LONNIE .Broekman, which is BROEKMAN.
That's right.
Excellent.
I've got Antonio, if you're listening. He calls me broke man or cashless or broke ass.
That's great.
Yeah, he's a funny fucker.
Oh, mate, that's awesome. Well, dude, thanks so much. I really do appreciate your time. I think it's been a really fun podcast.
Yep. Well, thank you very much, mate, for having me. And if anyone, wants some more help on their foxes or whatever, like I said, there's a ton of people out there that are well more experienced than I am, but I'll be more than happy to offer what little bit of advice I can.
You know what would be awesome, and it's up to you completely, but if you could put up a video of you doing that little fox whistle with your finger, I think that would be super beneficial for people who can't picture it.
Okay, well, yeah, next time I
do a post or something eventually, or a story.
Next time I'm at home or whatever, I'll because I'm working away at the moment.
Yeah,
I'll grab my fox whistle, give everyone a bit of a look at it, and basically sound it off, and they can sort of hear what it sounds like, and then I'll do the finger noise.
Yeah, definitely, man. If you tag me in it, I'll repost it on my socials as well, and make sure everyone gets a bit of an eye on it.
Excellent.
Cool. All right. Thanks, heaps, dude.
No worries, mate. Have a good one.
You too. That's it. That's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for joining us this week. If you have not already, please do hit subscribe. If you want to leave us a great little review, that would also be highly appreciated. However, follow along with our journey at becomingaBowhunter.podcast on Instagram and Facebook. You can also check out our website, which is www.becomingabowhunter.com. And if you want to email me of any guests or any questions that you would like answered on the podcast, then you can get in touch with me via email at matty@becomingabowhunter.com. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Make sure you join us next week. Big love from us at Becoming a Bowhunter.